Well, once again, we're needing to deal with sensitive issues. If we're going to deal with policy, and that's what we try to do for about a half an hour a week, then we're going to have to get into some of the issues that can be difficult. When we want to deal with prescriptive and performance standards, it necessarily opens onto a minefield of sensitivities about whether government should be big or small. It often takes us to where we have to deal with our assumptions about climate versus weather. We'll have to deal with a natural divide between policymakers and technical experts. We'll have to deal once again with the divergent interests very often in the academic side of our enterprises that we serve principally as a support function, and very often what is getting money to our researchers is to study issues that may ultimately cost us more money in the long run. So that's the perennial problem we have, I think, in the business side versus the academic side. And the academics are also at odds with very often the public at large. That we dealt with that in previous teleconferences. That's really not our business here, but we just have to recognize it. There's another one that comes up here, and it's come about over the past 2 or 3 years, and it has to do with an emergent energy advantage that the United States may be enjoying because of the way it's innovated on its oil recovery, petroleum, fossil fuel recovery. I guess I don't want to use the word fracking, but it's inevitably going to come up. It's important because when we deal with performance versus prescriptive standards, the battle line is generally along the in the energy space. We'll talk very briefly about the difference between performance and prescriptive standards in the life safety area, but principally most of the action at the moment seems to be in the energy sector. So we might ask the question, is it possible that manufacturing would be reshored to the United States because our fracking technologies and other technologies, energy recovery technologies have been developed to a point where it's worthwhile for companies to come and take their manufacturing facilities out of Europe, Eastern Europe particularly, and China and other developing economies, and bringing them back here. What does that do? We know we've all seen some of the images of what's going on in China because of their the pollution over there, but it's fair to ask this question: how does the prospect of the reshoring of American manufacturing, or manufacturing reshoring back to the United States, how will that affect how we deal with energy conservation, energy management issues in our industry? So I thought I'd start with a few numbers. I like to call them numbers to steer by, and let's cut to the chase here. When we deal with energy issues, performance standards for energy versus prescriptive standards for energy, it helps to know how much are we really going to try to govern with our standards. Obviously, we want to find the best place where our safety and our sustainability objectives are met. That's what I call leading practice discovery. What you can see here is that it varies according to household income. Energy costs, heating, lighting for families at this level here, and I assume this doesn't involve subsidies, either state subsidies or utility subsidies, that it takes quite a bit of their budget. However, you get up here, and of course, let's say less than 10%. In fact, as it gets larger, I'm going to guess that the energy budget is even less than 8%. That's just for a family, and that's where this data came from. In our industry, and I like to remind everyone, we are dealing with most of higher education square footage is largely classified by the codes as a business or as a commercial facility. And you can see here that lighting takes the lion's share of it. And I took took a little liberty here to get onto even more treacherous ground to suggest that some of these other components of the energy of our energy cost picture, our energy usage picture, involves space heating, ventilation, and cooling. And I think what you might think of as the third rail for energy code development is the gender difference in how energy is used by them. At the moment, I believe ASHRAE is the only organization that has a statement about how different people respond to temperature. I think they visualize a room as being one that's a comfortable room as one that involves 50% of the occupants are comfortable, and I think that's informed by the gender difference. But as workplaces change and maybe some organizations have a larger proportion of females, arguably they may be a little bit more sensitive to temperature than males, but I have to tell you, I think I want to move on that. I want to move across that very quickly because I've been married for a long time, but I think that's a sensitive area that we need to deal with, but not me. So let's go here to the, we'll get to Drew in a moment here. Thanks for laughing, Drew. A little bit of levity. We'll bring you on here in a moment. So let's get through some of our stars to steer by here. So I think this comes from the Energy Information Agency, and you can see here that lighting. We've made good progress with lighting here over the years. If you think of progress as being lower energy use, there's an acronym for that, I believe. We'll get to that, but some people are arguing that actually it's come down here. LEDs, people are actually moving it over to plug loads, and so I know as in my position at the NEC, we're always dealing with that. In any case, this is important because this is an area here where many of the energy organizations, energy standards developers, they want to get into this space here. Other plug loads, they want to put timers on them, and this is where we start to, this minefield of sensitivities I often speak of is the degree to which policy wants to govern what people are doing in their own home. Questions? How am I doing on time, Drew?
Time. Let's see what we're doing on time here.
While Drew checks our time. Go ahead, Drew.
You have 21 minutes left.
Good. Well, as our custom, we do an opening. That was my opening statement. Our stars, our numbers to steer by, and I'd like to welcome my colleague Andrew. He and I were remarking about how quiet it is here in academia. We went and looked at our weather map, and we could not find much bad weather. I think where the usual. I think what causes this area here pathologically is the cold air coming from Canada matching up with or hitting the warm air from the Gulf. That's what's causing tornadoes. But other than that, it's pretty quiet and sunny out there in the rest of the country, which explains why we don't seem to have a big turnout here on a lovely Friday afternoon in academia. Of course, this is such a scintillating topic, of course. We just really can't quite understand why people wouldn't want to be thinking about codes and standards on a day like this. In any case, that's where we're at. We like to go to. We like to also to go to some of the construction sites on other campuses, and I seem to have lost it here on my. So I'm going to get us out of Prescient. I think we're going to Iowa State University today. And we're going to look at their construction cam, and it looks nice there. If we look at let's see, are we seeing their weather? I bet if we look at their weather up here, we're seeing it over here. Yeah, maybe that's what we're seeing. In any case, I use this opportunity to remind the rest of the world that the construction, that the education industry is the largest non-residential building construction. Uh, there's more building construction activity in our industry than in any other non-residential building industry sector. So you've seen what's going on in Iowa here. Looks pretty good. It looks like it's well, they didn't do that in one day.
Time-lapse photography.
Right, so we get a sense of where they're going there. So in any case, we have the numbers. I think we are building at a rate of about 75 billion per year of new square footage, and that is the size of Microsoft's annual revenue, 70 billion. Our industry lays out this much stuff at the rate of Microsoft's annual sales. Okay. We will soon be having, I should mention another thing here. Mike is, my man, as I like to say, my man in LA is off today. He's been struggling mightily with the sizes of our files. As you know, we like to apply this discipline. We like to report every week about what we do and how it fits into the larger picture. Mike, our man from LA, is trying to make me look a little bit better. We will also be having Christine Fisher come on board starting the 27th, and she will be doing what we call pipeline support and also helping me with some of the communications issues, this among them. So we like to think we're getting better all the time. What I give to Mike Toner is a 100 megabyte file every Friday, and he comes back with a 36 gigabyte file. And that can be difficult moving around as well as cleaning up. So our audio and visual should be cleaning up a little bit better. You'll also notice too that he did post one, so you'll start to see Mike Toner posting these, and you will also see this playlist may well start to change. We may be embedding them more in the web pages in the future. So we thought that we would completely take this down. We won't do it anything fast, but we do know that even though there's just Andrew and I here this afternoon, that we get a much larger turnout. So this was posted last week. Since was this last week? No, since the 10th, we have 24 views on this one. So we have visitors, but they're not here on they're not here on a Friday afternoon, especially on a beautiful Friday afternoon. So I think let us get back to our presentation here. Oh, what's the other thing we can do here? We also like to talk a little bit. I went to the webcam. We also, before we go back there, let's go back to what we did this week. I'm sorry. It's been an active week here in Standards, Michigan, so to say. It's not like woe be gone, but let's run through very quickly what came in, what got washed ashore. I'll do it in reverse order. So today we dealt with, we're tooling up to deal with changes in the Healthcare Facilities Code, that's NFPA 99. There was some media coverage of the condition of university hospitals. So there's a number of technical issues we want to approach. We'll recycle some of others. We actually had some of our own out there. I don't think we really put our shoulder into this, but since we've formed this alliance here, and you can read it more yourself, we think that we'll have a little bit more success. Again, this is, we don't want to get too much into technical details here. Let's see, what else did we do? Today also, I think I posted something about the Department of Energy wanting to raise the level of discussion on the cost effectiveness of building energy codes. So, and I did this deliberately so that when you become sensitive to what they're trying to do, for example, the executive branch, how do I say this? The National Technology Transfer and Advancement Act encourages the private sector to develop its own standards of care, and if in the judgment of the executive branch we're not moving fast enough or in the trajectory it visualizes, it can come along, and it's made as much of a statement about that with these two links. So you can look at that, and so that's the rationale for putting that out there. It's a very short review period, by the way. So we'll have a teleconference on that and formulate some responses to that. Let's see, we also wanted to help the academics out from time to time. I find something that was useful to the academic side of the industry. So this has to do with some nomenclature for what apparently is a very important issue. I guess mass properties controls for space systems. That sounds like inertial, mass and inertia related. Let's see here. So we have safety code for elevators and escalators. So this is the classic A17 code for elevators and escalators. I'm hiring another person actually for more ASME and elevator support, David Flint. He is now on retainer to go to the ASME meetings and see what we can advance some total cost of ownership concepts there. It's likely not going to be just in this standard, but also elsewhere in the elevator construction and O&M space. Once again, we're dealing with DOE's participation in development of the IECC. That's, again, related to today's discussion about prescriptive versus performance codes. Again, in a half an hour, we can't get into all the details. I would encourage you to look at what the original notice, the text of the original notice. We will also talk about this on May 14th. Let's see. So the security obviously is a large issue for our industry, and there's a new standard being developed. I went and looked this thing over. It doesn't look like it's new to me. The claim is that it's new, but it didn't look new to me. In any case, experts in this area, I forwarded this on to all the security people here and elsewhere throughout the country in this organization here. I hope they are able to do something, get some ideas on the table there. So we're still in this week. Okay, commissioning. ICC's added its entry into the commissioning space. NFPA has one, ASHRAE has one, so why shouldn't ICC have one? Again, this this is related to the degree to which the government or other organizations want to assert control over how a building behaves after the building has been built. We'll deal with that a little bit more. IEEE, I think we started the week with IEEE with their patent policy. So we try to make the statement here that these policies profoundly affect the manner in which innovations are integrated into the market through ANSI standardization processes. I like to relate the anecdote that my experience here is that there's about 100 regulators for one innovator. That innovator, whether he's in his own garage or he's within a company, is a very frail organism, and standardization helps innovators because it can give their innovation scale and give them market validity. So we need to protect that innovator, and that's the intention of the IEEE patent policy. So let's hasten back to our discussion here about performance versus prescriptive performance standards versus prescriptive standards. One of the original ones was by the NFPA. The NFPA's Life Safety Code, another classic document, much like the A17 elevator standard. It's largely prescriptive, and but in light of that, and I think I have a piece of it over here. I think in general, it's laid out in a fashion that architects and others know well. New facilities, healthcare facilities, existing healthcare facilities, and this document, is typical. It has some core requirements that apply to all occupancies, and then it breaks off into these. So in the interest of time, I'll just be aware that this document is largely a prescriptive document. One of the more commonly used areas here, I believe, is in lighting. See if I can find it. It turns out that the testing the testing requirements. Some people are often surprised by this, but they're actually not, testing requirements are not asserted through anything the IEEE has done. They're actually asserted by they're asserted by the Life Safety Code, and that passage is here. And they say, you shall do it. This is what these shall be the testing intervals. So we have touched this in some other areas. I will talk at a different, in a different teleconference. Here, though, is there are I'll call it a companion document on the alternative approaches to life safety, and in that document, you'll see far fewer appearances of the word "shall." So I picked a spot here, and again, we can't get into anything like detail, but just be aware. And I picked a hospital area here because it's an area where compartmentalization can be very complicated, and it's hard to identify, it's hard to manage complicated spaces where pressurizations and fire safety concerns and gases and all kinds of complexities are present. So I feel that this is a very valuable document for the healthcare industry, the alternative approaches to life safety. And you'll find that I don't know if how successful ASHRAE and others can get in that space with prescriptive standards. You're going to need a performance standard. So, but let's get back. So we're going to get to our cinematic moment rather quickly. How am I doing on time there, Drew?
8 minutes.
Okay, so the climax has to happen near the end here. So what I wanted to bring to your attention is that we had actually dealt with performance versus prescriptive standards back a few years ago. Many of you know that I have a life in Northern Europe with my family, and so it's very easy for me to get to Geneva, for example. And there I received, on the very day it was released, from a gentleman named Trevor Weiss, a watermark copy of this document. On the very day it was released, it was just serendipity that it happened. But this is one that deals with very much the same topical material, the use of energy management systems with requirements for guidance and use, which is so much in play. It's necessary because it's a first revision and it's international, that tends to be a bit dilutive. And here is where I want you to take a look at it. That's my signal to, we have to get out of edit mode and we need to get into the document itself. So here is, here's the markup. So no, that's not the markup. Let's go here. Is this the markup? I think that might be the markup here. Oh, this is the proposal. That's part of our climatic moment here too. I can't seem to find where I might have missed. Oh, maybe it's over here. I think this is it. Yeah, this is it. Okay. So, all right. So this is what was given to me, a complimentary copy for me when I was at the ISO offices in Geneva, and they make, I think the meat of this, a lot of this is boilerplate, how your definitions, relationship to other documents. But here is where I felt the substance of it was. And I've actually tried to mark it up a bit. Energy management system requirements. So this is the broad contours of how they want to handle energy management. And they make some general statements. They're meaningful, but they're very moderated, very moderate statements about performance. It provides a framework for setting and reviewing energy objectives and documents. So that's your plan. The organization shall conduct and document an energy planning process. That seems like it's fairly reasonable stuff. The energy review, based on an analysis of the energy use and consumption, you identify the areas of significant energy. Oops, how do I get rid of that? Okay, here we go. It's coming up at me. Because this was a raster scan, I couldn't mark it up, so I put these little tabs on it. Identify, prioritize, and record opportunities for energy performance. Again, not unreasonable. Energy baseline. The organization shall establish an energy baseline And basically they say try to beat it. You know, whether it's 30% or 10% or 2%, that's all that they're saying. It's nothing, again, it's for an organization. It could be a whole industry, but because very often this document is used when investment analysts are going over balance sheets, they might look over a statement about what kind of standards, energy conservation standards are being followed, and the ISO has more. This document has more meaningful in for multinational diversified manufacturers, than the IGCC, for example, or ASHRAE 90.1. We'll get to that in a second. So they make some fairly reasonable things here, and I don't want to belabor it. So in light of all that, and this happened, what, 2011? Is that when I got this? 2011. So I wanted to approach the IECC about this, and I discussed this with many others in our industry, and I explained to them that maybe we should be at least somebody's with a larger worldview has got to be presenting this to the to the energy conservation, our national groups. So I did that, and I made a very simple, what I thought was a very simple type of a statement. Let's go back here. I'll stay in edit mode so we can zoom on this. I'm saying, well, you claim to be an international energy conservation code, so so here's all these other documents you want to reference into your standard. Very often standards want to look to other standards, and I said, why don't you do that? And they didn't buy it, as you'll see. And I suppose for fairly it's the first time they see it. I like to say that you really can't get committees to move with it. You're lucky if it's 3 years. And I would argue that if you can get a committee to move within 3 years, you've done something 3 to 6 years before that to make it look like you did it. So in any case, it's only an energy management standard that will apply to a building once constructed. It contains no standards for the construction of a building. And therein, I mean, I suppose maybe that's more of a dramatic moment. As you come to see, when you look back on this statement, you'll see why it's important to us and why I picked this particular topic and how this topic was preceded by all the other action that we saw earlier in the week. So let's see, where are we going next? We've already been there. Let's see. Oh, I know what I want to do. Let's go over here. So here was the committee, and I thank Larry. I know Larry listens to these videos. Larry stood up there in front of the microphone and pointed it out for us, so I want to give credit to Larry, who's been very helpful to me over the years in understanding the dynamics of these different organizations. So we're going to find ourselves over there, but first let's get a time check. I bet I've run over pretty darn close.
Less than 2 minutes.
Less than 2 minutes. Okay, let's. I think we can do that. So here we have now another document, which is another energy document. It follows ANSI processes, and it seems to be the document on the rise at the moment. We've had 90.1 has a long storied history like the Life Safety Code and ASME A17, but this one seems to be a document of the moment for reasons that might give you pause on either side of your political your political outlook. And what they are asserting here as a performance option is actually performance is actually built on the basis of mandatory conformity. So without getting into the details, they'll claim that they're a performance document. Frankly, they're actually mixed, but they'll also say that once you've done all this other stuff, which could be onerous and add additional costs, then you're allowed to take performance choices. And it's not enough that they're dealing with what's going on within a building. They're dealing with what's going on outside of a building. For example, they even say if you're going to do a building and you want a high-performance building, make sure the site is appropriate. So I guess I understand that. I think what they're saying here is that why not even they're questioning why you even want to build a building at all. So why don't you build that building within another building? They're also saying, why don't you build it on a brownfield, or why don't you build it on a grayfield site or a greenfield site? So they're actually, it's not enough to their view of green buildings are ones that are appropriately sited, preferably on areas. First of all, your first choice is not the building at all. The second was, if you're going to build it, build it on a brownfield site. Let's see another one. As I say, they've gone outside the building into landscaping. We had some concepts in front of this last year regarding bicycle parking. So they have appropriated bicycle parking as part of their scope also. So no longer do they involve just what's going on in the building. No longer do they involve how you design it. They're asking how you design it on the outside. There's even provisions for parking and for I know another part of this is it has to do with, you know, those pads you put outside a door sometime when you scrape the mud off.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure what you call those, but they've appropriated that as part of their scope. I wasn't aware that indoor air quality that was a factor, a significant factor to deal with indoor air quality, but it is. So I guess what they've done here, they employ project commissioning for buildings greater than 50,000 square feet. So once again, I'm trying to emphasize the fact that when they rejected us back here because the international standard only dealt with what goes on in the building once it's constructed. Now the IECC, they're getting into that space, and it's natural. You know, one's an international document, the other one is a U.S.-based document. But they're all claiming to be international now, and for that reason, ASHRAE, there's other reasons, of course, but ASHRAE, the ICC, and the United States Green Building Council formed an alliance. So I believe that its core document is going to be the 189-point document. A lot of them seems to, 90.1 is the one we're always familiar with, but it seems as though for the political agenda at least, 189.1 seems to be the document of choice. So my final point, my final bullet points here is that a key driver for performance codes is the divergence between building design and building performance. It's very frustrating for energy activists to realize that the history of our building industry is one that the fire marshal said would give you a certificate of occupancy, and that was appropriate. That was good enough. It was fire safe enough, and the public, and a lot of that goes back to buildings being close to each other in Chicago. You know, and you want all buildings have to be fire safe so they don't cause fire in other buildings. I do get that. And the U.S. tradition doesn't really care what you do in your, up until now, say that the U.S. tradition does not care what you do in your house or building, only that it's safe to be in there. Energy codes such as ASHRAE 189.1 and whatever develops from this alliance are tantamount to determining what you do in your own house or building. So, and then not only do they want to control your energy use in your building, but they want to govern the bicycle and automobile parking outside of it, the landscaping where you put it. And as I try, go ahead. You had a question, Gru?
No, I was just laughing.
Yeah. Okay. Soon they will be governing entire campuses and cities. The ASHRAE standards development process is robust and best in class. So I deal with 20 of them, maybe 30 of them, pretty much routinely. And ASHRAE's got one of the best. If you look and see what my voting record is, I don't get a lot of proposals, but I'm always out there, and you can see that their committees are the best they can put together at the moment. It's true that the energy activists, people who are in this space, will dominate the dialogue. That's why our point here at Standards Michigan is that we want to get our industry on those committees as well. Now, will those be academics who believe that we only got 20 years to live because of global warming, Or are there people on the business side who say, well, maybe that climate change is really just a change in the weather? That's not what I'm talking about here. We can talk about that over beer someplace and have fun with it. For the moment, we have to understand that if you're a really good standards developer like ASHRAE is, you get to do this. And I asked this question earlier, our gecko is it relevant in an era when the U.S. has such energy capacity that manufacturing may reshore? So a lot of our energy assumptions are, if we're going to bring back manufacturing here, we may ask ourselves, will that be reducing the energy, our industry's energy costs, or will it be netting out greater economies and greater economic growth for our industry? Do we want to discourage the reshoring of manufacturing? So this could get into larger political issues, and that might be a discussion that really is apart from standards development. Manufacturing is energy intensive, and thus the ISO is in the space where nations agree to greenhouse gas and energy goals. If you look at the papers we develop on that, we think we've done some rather significant things on reducing greenhouse gases. Go and look at the paper I wrote with my colleague Trish Coleman on our website. So finally, I just wanted to say that performance energy codes become perilously close to restricting the individual freedom to consume energy in your own home. I think we already said that, but I felt that I wanted to make that clear and explain why I started this discussion by saying it can be very sensitive. But that's what we do 30 minutes a week, right?
Give or take, yes.
Yeah, so to remind everybody, last week I said what we do is we make things safer, simpler, lower cost, longer lasting. We do that not from large policy pronouncements. We know what we need to do. We need to make things safer, simpler, lower cost, and longer lasting. How do we do it? We do it from the accumulation of marginal gains. We're not throwing lightning bolts here. We look for inspiration at the work point. We know that we got from here to here to here, not through occasionally there was a large disruptive innovation made, but in general, if we're working every day to find little things that we can do and improve, if you come down here, you can see a city. See, that's a city there. I'm trying to convey the fact that speed is an essential characteristic. We need to be fast, often at the cost of quality, and that's why we don't see a lot of polish on these presentations. We believe that we don't want the excellent to be enemy of the good. In general, we're trying to write code and get votes, and these half-an-hour sessions every week are try to recalibrate our own in the bright lights of the worldwide inner tubes. So with that, I think I'll just say I hope everyone has a good weekend, and next week we can talk about, I had a couple ideas. We could talk about green overreach, or we could talk about the business models of standards developers. I think I don't want to put two very political sensitive issues back to back, so why don't we talk about the business models of various different standards developers in light of the fact that we've had the rule that ANSI is promoting, they're supporting their standards developers by making them by making it economical for them to stay in business. And that gets, if you go back to some of our earlier teleconferences, you'll see how we made that point. Because as I like to say, without ANSI, we would have other non-experts writing the rules for technology and other things that we enjoy and take for granted, and are the foundation for our quality of way of life. There's an old canard about engineers. It has to do with well, no, the one I wanted to say, excuse me, that's not the canard I wanted to talk about. The one I wanted to conclude this one about had to do with a little joke about how politics is what is it? Politics is show business for ugly people. Well, I will say that standards development and standards activism is politics for people who don't want to run for political office. They're essential to getting the best ideas on table. You can't have people so remote from the work point that that we can really change our life if we're top heavy with policy. So at the moment, I think I'll stop right there. I will see you, we'll have probably a couple more people next week, hopefully. I know that they're watching these videos to learn a little bit more about what we're doing. So have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you very much for your time.